In today's topic, what we're going to be looking at is 5 key steps never talked about when setting goals. And just before we move on to that, let me ask you a question. Have you ever, as an adult, looked into the mirror and you've said to yourself, wow, I thought I'd be a lot further along to where I'm actually at right now? Have you ever felt that way? You've set the goals for so many years, we've been taught to do it forever and a day, but all of a sudden, sometimes you sit back and think, well, hang on a second, it's not really working. I've set the goals down, I've done everything that I'm supposed to be doing, but why aren't I actually getting the results? Well, I think it's a lot to do with what we're going to discuss in today's topic. And I've been doing some really interesting research. When I've been around for a long time, you'll see a picture of me shortly coming up, but when I first started looking at goal setting, there was a study that we were always taught when I was in business coaching, all of that sort of thing. There was a particular study that was done from Yale and Harvard, I think it was about 1953, where they had people had written down their goals. Only 3% had their goals written down, 13% had goals but not written down, and 84% had no specific goal. The interesting thing that I found out about that survey is that it's not actually true. I was quite deflated when I actually heard that. I couldn't believe it. So for a long time we've been taught that's the actual method. You write your goal down and you're actually going to achieve that result. And I think most of us know that it's not really true. It doesn't happen that way. And one of the areas that's quite interesting is our tricky little mind. It actually thinks in pictures. So by just writing goals down, you're not imprinting that picture on your mind. So I've had some very interesting studies that have been going on with goal setting in the last couple of months and really working hard at it. And one of the key areas that we want to talk about is self-education is key. Now, I've come from a no education background and leaving school very early, but the things that I've gone through and learnt is by investing in myself and learning how to work these systems correctly and learn from people that are already achieving results. And when you look at the way in which business is and the way in which we go, we really a very sort of linear line of thinking. And what we need to do now is to really expand our mindset and create a more growth mindset. And with this new gig economy, there is just so much opportunity that is available for you. And let's face it though, one thing that's always a problem, being successful is not easy. I mean, if it was, everybody would be doing it. There's a lot of work that goes into this study that you've got to do, the reading and keeping yourself upgraded all the time and connecting with people around the globe that are high achievers. They're actually getting results that you want to get. So this is what you've got to do, is then start to model those types of people. And it's about learning the skills and the habits and the techniques from people that have already done that. And one area that I think is really important is that you've got to take ownership of your own life. And there's no point in putting the blame out on the government, or it was the weather, or you're in the wrong environment. It's about taking ownership of everything that you want to achieve in your life. And it means the good, the bad, and the ugly. So hello, I'm Helen Mirren, and you can see me on Facebook at The Rebel Business Builders. But I'm here just to share with you some interesting journeys, and would have been a lot easier if I'd learnt them a lot earlier in my life. I mean, that particular study from Harvard that I've always had, where you had to write your goals down, I always thought that was true, but I've only just found out recently that it's not. So let me share with you some really interesting informational ways for you to go through and start to look at your goals and how you're going to achieve the results. And we always talk about that we don't want to be looking backwards and looking back in the past. But I think it's important, particularly if you look back, not to dwell on it, but what are the biggest pains and the biggest failures that you've had, and the biggest things that actually went wrong in 2018. Now, if you're running a business, or if you're in direct sales, or you're just starting to venture out, it's not about finding a blame game or anything like that, but it's about identifying what actually went wrong. And it's important to actually jot those things down and think about those things. So don't be, this is your growth period. This is your story. This is your journey. So don't be embarrassed about some of the things. I mean, I've made some really crappy decisions on a couple of things that I've actually purchased, and I understand that. But it's important for me to look at what was the learning behind that. And this is why they say everything happens for a reason. So what about if those goals that you didn't achieve, or those challenges that you actually had, the problems that created that crappy year, were all a part of a learning? So what if they were actually designed for you to get you to expand and grow? And I think this is where we're looking at a lot of things. We look upon them when we go into the new year and you think back, okay, I had a really shitty year. But we're missing the point of seeing what's actually happening from there. It's actually a learning curve. It's an expanding and a growing session that we're actually going through. So we've got to start to look at those things with value. What if it was if we just changed the wording of that and said, well, it was actually your research and development for that part of your life, right? If you turn it on its head and flip it over and look at what actually went wrong and say, okay, so what is it that I can actually learn from that experience? And what is it that you've got to let go of instead of holding on to it? What lessons can you extract from that experience? Ask yourself, what did you learn? And it's really, really important to sit back and have a look at some of these things, because I think we carry on some of these journeys into each year, and we need to just let go and learn to say no to some of these things because maybe we took on too much. And number 2, right? Actually, sorry, I skipped one. So if we go through and we find the lesson of what we were supposed to learn from all of that, those who don't learn from their failures will repeat them again. And that's when it becomes a habit. So if you're not getting the results, you're not moving forward, is it because you're repeating the same habit over and over again? And when you identify those things that actually went wrong, they need to be then put onto your not to-do list. You know some of those things you're doing, that you're just moving the papers on the desk to tidy it all up, and you're not actually getting out there and talking to enough people, or you're not taking on and doing actual income producing activities. You're losing yourself in distraction. So I think that's important to identify what's actually gone on in that area. Number 2, we're looking at what are the biggest needle movers? What are the 3 things that moved you the most? So if you write that down, you know what success you actually had. So what were those 3 things that actually moved you the most and you started to get results with it? So jot those ones down as well too. Now this is what we actually put you into the flow. So when you find the 3 biggest needle movers and you then add fuel to those. So instead of focusing, we've identified what's gone wrong, we need to move that on our not to-do list, right? And be aware of that. And then we identify what's really kicked the needle in and what's actually made us get into the flow. And that's where we need to add the fuel to it, right? That's what we need to ignite and get that going stronger. Unfortunately, we sort of delude ourselves a little bit. We have this delusion that we're actually busy, but is it really moving us closer to what we want to achieve? Maybe some of those things need to go on our not to-do list. And the other thing is, and I've been guilty about this online, is are you spreading yourself too thin? I mean, you can get sidetracked on social media and all of the different things that you're supposed to be doing online, buying this program and that program. It's going to make it easier for you, but you never really complete one going right through. So you're spreading yourself too thin. That's something you've got to move on to your not to do list. Get rid of it. All right. So it's analyzing what doesn't work. And when you do less of that and do more what is actually working, then that's going to take you into the direction that you want to go. Number 3, if we pretend it was, well, let's say we're pretending it's the end of 2019. It could be whenever you're actually setting these goals and you're 1 week away from 2020 and you are rocking it out, right? You've had the best year out. Think about that for a moment. What does it feel like, right? You sit back there and you're sipping on your happy coffee and I'm just writing what you've achieved in that last 12 months. And what did it look like? All right. How did you feel about those results? Now, this is what you need to start writing down to become your plan for you to set your goals down. What happened? Write it down and pick 3 key achievements. Dig deep into it, how you feel about what happened. All right. And this is what we're looking back, what happened in 2020. You've just seen a whole new emotion come through. And this is what we're doing. We're creating the thoughts, and we're igniting that with feeling to create that belief. This way it's actually starting to give us the action steps that we can do, and then we'll start to achieve the results with it. This is the most important way to actually write your goals down, is by creating a definite major purpose on what you're actually trying to achieve first, and then look back to how it felt. Did you go on a holiday? All right. Did you employ new staff members? Did you increase your profit? All these sorts of things are important to write down, and what you're visualizing and how you feel about it. That then becomes your goals and your action steps that you're going to actually work towards. Now, when you do that, you create what we call crystal clear vision, and you can see what's actually going on. The vision of what you want and why you want it becomes so much easier for you to then go through and set goals. Now, number 4, it's an attaching emotion. As you saw with that picture before, with the getting from your thoughts to your belief to your action to your results, I had a little explosion of emotion in there. And it's important, whatever you are doing to set your goals down, you have got to attach an emotion to it. Get a picture out of it. Stick your face at whatever it is. If you're sitting in the Bahamas or something like that, get you sitting there in your bikini or sipping back on a cocktail. Connect an emotion to how you would feel about that. And this is what you're actually writing down. Your unconscious mind connects with emotion. Oh, I can't stress that enough to you. When you're writing your goals, when you attach that emotional feeling to it, and it's your major purpose, it becomes so much more exciting, and your energy level is just so much higher. And boy, does that make a difference at work with what you're trying to achieve. And as I said there, a picture is worth 1,000 words. An emotional picture is worth 1,000 words to your unconscious mind. What would it feel like on an emotional level if you never had to worry about money again? How would you feel? And this is key when it comes to writing your goals. If you attach an emotion to that goal, you're in action. So everything begins to start happening. It's really critical that you get that emotional connection. Number 5, if you write down 3 action steps you're going to do to step towards that new goal. So when you're sitting here now, go over these videos again. You can keep repeating over this, but sit down and write 3 steps that you must take towards it, and then set a time frame. As you can see, I've completed this by January 1st. We've gone past January 1st now. So set that into a time frame that is going to be suited for you. It's most important that you set a time frame down so you can then start to actually achieve your goals. And this is what is the process is easy when you do it in this way. What 3 action steps are you going to take today? I know everybody, we've got all the 6 stages of your health, and you've got your spiritual connection, you've got your work, and you've got your career and the money. There's so many different areas where you can set goals in, but let's just work on one area to start off with, and work on 3 action steps you can take straight away. And this way you're going to get your goals into action, and you've got a date set towards it. And once you start achieving that, you're going to feel so much more confident in achieving your actual goal results. Now, the biggest reason goals are not achieved is, unfortunately, it's a story that you're telling yourself. It's the little villain that's hidden inside, and it's grabbing at those old stories, which are the wrong stories, and you're saying it to yourself out loud. And if you want to move past this, you've got to say to yourself out loud, I am not willing to live another person's story anymore. Life gets in the way. Everybody gets thrown a curveball sometimes. I understand that. And to be blunt, shit does happen to everybody. Right? The problem is, are you going to allow that to melt you back into being just blending in with the crowd like 98% of the people do? Or are you going to make things happen? Now, when you identify these areas clearly, all right, and looking at what you haven't achieved and work out what was the story, what was the learning behind that, and then start to look at what you're really trying to achieve, your definite major purpose. So sneak out, get some quiet time, no one around, grab a coffee, whatever it is that you need, and quietly visualize what your life would look back if you look back over the last 12 months to what you're going to achieve. And then that is your definite major purpose. It really is very powerful, instead of just writing goals, to connect an emotion to it and put some pictures connected to it so you can really see where you're actually heading. Remember, your unconscious mind loves to think in pictures. So thanks for your time on this. We're just adding the next stage of developing and setting your goals. If you've got any questions, please come over and connect with me at the Rebel Business Builders, or you can drop me an email at helenmirren@gmail.com. Love to chat with you more. We can get on Messenger and talk if you're having any trouble setting your goals, and we can take it a further step from there. So signing off for today, and we will be talking up with our final video shortly.